What do you need to know about everything that is going on with the cuts and the signings around the NFL? What do you need to know about drafting in the Fantasy Football Players Championship, Big Gorilla, and the Never Too Early tournaments, as well as the FFPC Orphan Teams that you need to be picking up right now? Plus, how do you manage your dynasty teams right now as far as trades and everything that goes into that? You are looking live at the Fantasy Football Players Championship, High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Don't go anywhere. Ferrell Elliott is here. I'm here. This is the hsffhour live on the FFPC YouTube channel. We've got a great show for you. Don't go anywhere. The hsffhour goes live right now.
Can't stand the pressure. I've seen greater men than need a lesson.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now watching the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for analysis from the best players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott.
Solace in the scripture. Are we not all our father's sons? I became a man. Nobody ever told me what a man was.
Hey, thank you so much. Welcome in. Appreciate you, Rob and Bryce, our mutual friend and my best friend tonight, chiming in on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. I am Eric Balkman. You can follow me on the X at Eric Balkman. You know me from the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown, the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show on the Better Sports Network, and of course the Fantasy Football Players Championship at myffpc.com. FFPC on the X as well. If you are looking for, and we have a great content set up for you tonight over the course of the next hour. If you are looking to put that content to good use, check out the myffpc.com Fantasy Football Players Championship Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament and the Superflex Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament. Both of these tournaments will go until April 24th, which is the start of the NFL draft. And if you want to win a $40,000 champion, or $40,000 grand prize championship, a $10,000 grand prize championship, go to myffpc.com and register for these tournaments right now. $125, $35 will be the entry fees on these. Tournaments are going to go all the way until April 24th. Like I said, drafts are available 30-second, 60-second, 2-hour, and 6-hour clock. So if you want to draft live, if you want to draft slow, whatever you want, myffpc.com is where to go for that. The FFPC Big Gorilla Tournament, I got to tell you on this, we have had a big response to the Big Gorilla Tournament. This is formerly known as the Fantasy Pros Championship, the Football Guys Players Championship. We have had almost twice the pace, right over twice the pace of the Fantasy Pros Championship with the Big Gorilla Tournament. And I think part of the reason is if you register now, you are getting in on two separate tournaments. The Big Gorilla as well as the Early Rampage Tournament, the first 200 leagues that are filled. If you register now, you are getting in on not only winning $1 million grand prize, but a $10,000 grand prize in the Big Gorilla Early Rampage Tournament. And then if you are lucky enough to get the 7 pick 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times in a row, you're going to have the opportunity to win a $125 best ball tournament entry, high society entry, and main event entry. If you are lucky enough to get it 4 times in a row, you will get a jungle safari for 4. If you win the 7 pick 5 times in a row, you will get a jungle safari for 4 or $50,000 prize, whatever you want. You don't have to differentiate between the two. myffpc.com is where to register for that. myffpc.com for the Fantasy Pros for the Big Gorilla Championship. The Big Gorilla Tournament is something that we've offered brand new this year. $1 million grand prize. Register now. And Dynasty Orphans are available. MyFFPC.com. Entry fees range from $77 all the way up to $5,000. Some of those entry fees have been lowered all the way to $1. So if you want to play fantasy football 365 days a year, now is the time to register. MyFFPC.com. 1,800 plus leagues, coming up on 1,900 plus leagues once we get those startups going in April. Not a single league has ever folded in 15 years. MyFFPC.com. I want to thank Bryce and our mutual friend Rob. Let me bring on Ferrell Elliott right now, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football. Ferrell, save me from this right now. It's been a wild day. I say this because I always prepare a show over the previous 36 hours, and this time of year stuff happens. And my God, once again, we have the Raiders making news, we have the Seahawks making news. So we're going to go right into it tonight. Welcome to the show. Thanks so much for hanging out with me tonight. We got a lot to discuss.
We have that big gorilla, and if you get that 7 pick 7 times in a row, Balky, the player will actually get to come to Vegas and have dinner during draft week with you and I, because, well, you know, no more fun than that.
This is news to me. I didn't know this. This is news to me.
Breath. Yeah, we're going to make Turk pay for it. Take a deep breath and just relax. You know, the gorilla is fantastic. We still haven't learned how to properly say rampage. If I was a Cincinnati Bengals aficionado, as you know, a lot of people play in the FFPC and the KFFSC, especially there in Northern Kentucky, are. If I would go on a rampage because the loss of Hendrickson, or the commentary that Hendrickson may seek a trade, so being shown the door to get out of town. That was some of the biggest news to me when defensive special teams is an important thing in fantasy football. Henderson makes all the difference for the Cincinnati Bengals. I couldn't believe it when the Saints let him get away. I thought that was the most intelligent thing the Bengals have done in years, and now they're going to let him go. So that's just we got so much to talk about. What do you want to talk about first?
Well, what we need to talk about first is this Geno Smith thing that happened. Okay. 2 hours before we went on the air tonight. Your Raiders, and by the way, I'm going to bring in the chain right now. Thanks to John Terry. Yeah, bring it in right now. Here we go. Anytime we talk about the Raiders, thanks to John Terry and Ferrell Elliott, I have this chain that we're going to adorn my neck with tonight, and we're going to talk about this Geno Smith trade. Okay. The Raiders have acquired Geno Smith from the Seattle Seahawks in exchange, essentially, as far as I can tell, just a third-round pick in the 2025 draft is going to go to the Pacific Northwest. Ian Rappaport was the first to report the deal, and apparently Smith is going to get a new contract with the Raiders with this trade as well. Mike Garafolo says it's going to be the 92nd pick of the 2025 NFL draft. The Raiders had multiple third-round selections, as we're all aware. Smith finished his third year as the starter of the Seahawks with just over 4,300 yards, 70% completion percentage, and a 20-14 touchdown to interception ratio over 17 starts. He's going to be 34 years old. He's going to head to Sin City to be the guy who is going to be passing the ball to Jacoby Myers, the guy who's going to be passing the ball to Brock Bowers. I'm going to be honest with you. The pass catchers he's going to have in Sin City is going to not be as good as what he had in Seattle with Metcalf, with Lockett, with Fant, with Smith and Jigba. Your thoughts initially, Ferrell, on this, as Geno Smith now is the guy who is stepping in to throw to Myers and Bowers. We'll get to Seattle in a second, but your Raiders have a new quarterback tonight.
I like the deal. Historically, he has not lived up to the contract. I want to flip back to when he first got there. 30 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. That's what they're hoping for, is a return to that. This is a good placeholder for the Raiders to evaluate where they want to go in the future. The third-round pick is not – it is very, very confusing. You know, I like this much, much better than Gardner Minshew last year. Yeah. And there's a track record there, and the coaches looked at the film. They've gone to the combine. They've reviewed free agency, and they say, hey, this is a safe and consistent idea of a quarterback and what we want to build with. Now, Geno Smith, and we talked about it on this show before, Geno Smith is one of the most loved quarterbacks in the locker room that you could possibly have. He's a player that brings this team together, be a kind of leadership, quiet leadership, and help build that bridge to the coaching staff. I like the deal based on the quarterbacks that I think are going to be available, based on the quarterbacks that have been used by the Raiders trying to seek an answer, and they have not provided any answers. So, yeah, I can live with this for the Raiders. And let's beyond that, it does wonderful things for the receiving core of the Raiders to have a consistent quarterback. Let's see how Brock Myers could do with the same quarterback under center for most of the snaps. Same thing with Myers. And then Derek Greer, in a conversation earlier today, Derek jumped into the chat room here. Derek says this opens up the Raiders to get a running back drafted early in the first round, and who's yet to see who that running back might be. And while we're talking, we're going to get to some things that dynasty football is very important this time of year. We're going to get to some of that. But Derek bought a team, adopted a team, Balky, and the FFPC is known as a bastion of fairness and honesty in the fantasy football world. And Derek paid $1 for this $500 team. Derek was grossly overpaid for this team. Ezekiel Elliott's grandfather is a running back on this team. I mean, this is the worst team. Derek's he's got to be down to 16 players at the end of the month. I think he's going to be down to 5 players. I think he's just going to cut them all. But it's good stuff. Don't cut them all yet, Derek, because trades. There's all kinds of surprises. But Balky, what else you want to talk about?
Well, just regarding this trade here, one of the things I have said, and I think I've said it on this show before, I wanted somebody in Las Vegas that was good enough. Like I compared this to Jake Delhomme, Steve Smith. I wanted somebody that was good enough to throw to the first, maybe the second option, but I didn't want somebody that was good enough to throw all over the field. Throw to the guys that he could make his second, third, fourth progression. I think Geno Smith is a good guy here for Bowers. I think he's a really good guy for Myers because he's not this. My concern was the Raiders finding a way to get Aaron Rodgers, who was talented enough to get to his third and fourth progression. I don't know if Geno Smith is talented enough to do that, which is perfect because if you like Brock Bowers, if you have Jacoby Myers on your dynasty teams, Geno Smith is going to be good enough to get to the ball to Bowers and Myers. I don't know if he's talented enough to get to the guys after that.
And if the head coach wants to hug him, he'll hug him back, whether he's in a good mood or not.
Right. Well, I mean, there's that as well. But I think this is really, really good. If you have, quite frankly, if you had Bowers, if you had Myers in dynasty leagues, you probably weren't sweating this a whole lot because the quarterback was not going to make a huge difference or not. But Bowers, the fact that he gets to catch passes from Geno Smith, this is a win. Myers, he gets to catch passes from Geno Smith. This is a win. After that, I don't know what's going to happen. We'll see what Las Vegas does in the draft. But this eliminates Russell Wilson. This eliminates Aaron Rodgers from throwing the ball in Las Vegas going forward. Okay, let's do this. Seattle right now. John Schneider, who is the GM, will continue the conversation here. DK Metcalf is being shopped around the league right now, Ferrell. One of the great things that we have seen from this GM in Seattle is he's been very forthcoming and very open that he is shopping Metcalf around, that he's trying to meet Metcalf's demand to be traded to another team. We don't often see this around the NFL. We often see when a player is rumored to be shopped, the GM is not going to say anything to that end. But Schneider is saying look, this guy wants to be moved. And so we're going to try to move him. Your thoughts on Metcalf right now, knowing that he is, I don't want to say not going to be in Seattle next year, but knowing that there's a very real possibility that he is not going to be a Seahawk in 2025. How do you draft this guy in FFPC leagues and KFFSC leagues right now?
I think you draft him aggressively. You draft him above his draft spot as Darren will tell us with his Fantasy Mojo site. I would be aggressive on this player. The one way to win is, as we've talked to our winners across all different formats here in the last couple of months, is think outside the box. Let's go ahead and not be so conservative. Let's go ahead and picture that that Metcalf is just like Hendrickson, the defender who left New Orleans and was the great sack maker at Cincinnati. Let's think that Metcalf goes to a team where he can be the Metcalf. We haven't seen Metcalf slow down. We haven't seen him not make the difficult catch. He and Evans at Tampa Bay are seemingly ageless, and they continue to contribute at a high level. I'm very pleased to have Metcalf on my fantasy team.
Yeah, Metcalf is interesting. Wide receiver 26 at the 509 right now. That's behind. It's too low for you.
Too late.
It's too low. Okay.
You got to draft him higher than that.
This is behind Flowers and Sutton. It's ahead of Jamison Williams and Chris Olave. I guess, on the surface, I look at this. Ferrell, I'm with you. I think that is probably a little bit too low. I would probably take him ahead of Sutton. I would take him ahead of Flowers. Devonta Smith, I would let's go bold tonight. I would take him ahead of Devonta Smith. I would take him ahead of Devontae Adams, who we don't know, where he's going to end up this year. And then you get into the mid to late fourth round with the Chiefs receivers.
And 5'9" is his average, Balky, and that means anyone that got him after that sure should be sitting around smiling. You might be just on your way to a league winner right there.
It's entirely possible. And bear in mind that while I know that there's an unknown with Metcalf right now, whoever trades for him is going to want him to be their number one receiver. Yep. And if that is the case, he will skyrocket. No, not skyrocket, but he will.
I like skyrocket. It's a good word, Bob.
No, it's not skyrocket.
Skyrocket would be a good word, Bob.
Just regular rocket.
You are the rocket, Bob.
He's going to move up. And
blasting off.
And I think that now is the time to get him at the 509. Listen, we have our guest coming up, Bill Rehor, who has won 12 FFPC Dynasty Leagues over his career. Ferrell, Jacksonville had a busy day yesterday. They traded Christian Kirk to Houston. But the thing I want to focus in on, because the FFPC is a tight end premium format, Evan Ingram is now a free agent. Now, the thing that we need to be made aware of is there are 4, maybe 5 tight ends in the FFP or in the NFL draft this year that could be difference makers in their rookie year. If Jacksonville does not draft any of them, they will probably be treating Brenton Strange as their top tight end. We know how good Brenton Strange was this past year when Evan Ingram is out. Ferrell, how are you treating Brenton Strange in FFPC best ball drafts, FFPC Big Gorilla, Never Too Early, KFFSC drafts right now, knowing that Strange can put up the numbers if he's called upon, and he's probably going to be called upon much more in 2025 as of right now, knowing Evan Ingram is probably going to be not going to be on this Jaguars team.
Strange is a very ordinary player with good hands, bit of a sloppy route runner, kind of stiff. He's a smaller Cole Kmet, as far as I'm concerned. He's about 6'4", 250. I think this is a mistake. Ingram is coming off a season like.
Hold on. I'm going to stop you there. What was the mistake? Jacksonville releasing Ingram?
Yeah, I think this is a mistake. I think you should have figured out a way to work that. I don't know all the other aspects around this deal. I can't wait to talk about the Kirk side of this, but Ingram is coming off. Someone should pick up Ingram and enjoy it, and drafters should continue to look at Ingram in their never too early drafts, because he's coming off the same kind of year that he had with the Giants, where I was not a fan. His final year at the Giants was probably statistically similar to what he did this year. I don't know what his injury situation was throughout the year. But I do believe he had some nagging injuries. So he comes with a down season. He came off of that season recently with 100+ receiving season. So I don't write this player off yet. Don't just think Jacksonville has made the correct move here, because I don't think they have, and I don't believe that Strange is anything other than a solid 60 catch tight end. If you want to see what Strange might be, think of Freiermuth. I think that's the ceiling for who Strange would be in this or any offense. But it could be much less.
What do you think, Ferrell? If you have Evan Ingram, let's use this as an example. If you have Evan Ingram in an FFPC Tight End Premium Dynasty League, what is the team that you want him optimally to sign with? Who do you want him to go to?
It's very difficult for me to say that. Someone that wants to use him as a slot receiver, someone that wants to use him pretty much in the way that the Raiders used Bowers, and he has that skill set, especially in the intermediate routes.
And he has enough in the tank, right, that he can still be valued asset in your tight end leagues.
I had to be careful because I do not know his injury history, and I've read very little about it, and perhaps some of our guys in the chat room that had him know more about it than I do. But if healthy, and you can say that about Kirk as well, if healthy, this is a dangerous player in a number of different landing spots. So you want me to give you a landing spot? Tom Smith just gave us the Colts. New Orleans is a hodgepodge at tight end. That always seems to be an interesting place. I don't think another Jacksonville Jag ends up landing at Houston, but that could be something. Denver, perhaps. There's, if we dug into it, we could find the coaching tree and just see where the guys are that appreciate Ingram. But Ingram is 30 years old, and that's I want to dispel the thinking of the 30-year-old NFL player is not what he was 10 or even 5 years ago. 30-year NFL player is still in his prime, and I think this player will pay significant dividends, and he will be right now next to free, won't he, Balky, in the drafts? I mean,
I think that's the thing that we need to understand is it's not exciting to draft Evan Ingram in your FFPC or KFFSC drafts right now. But he is going to be signed probably by this time next week by someone that, look at what the luminaries are saying in the chat. We have Tom Smith saying Indianapolis. We have Tom Smith saying Denver. We have Derek Greer saying Los Angeles Chargers, Los Angeles Rams. And I think that what's fascinating about this is we have paid a lot of attention to a lot of FFPC partners who have put out mock drafts over the last week or two saying, okay, look for Warren to go to the Colts, right? Look for, Harold Fannin Jr. to go to the Rams in the second, like whatever it is. But if we have a guy like Evan Ingram signing with one of these teams, that's going to radically change mock drafts. It's going to radically change the way we draft these players, here on March 7th, 2025. So I think that we will, I think it was Sigmund Bloom from Football Guys always says, by this time next week, Ferrell, we will be drinking from the fire hose of NFL free agency situations. And it's going to change the way we think about how players are going to be drafted coming up at the end of next month as well.
If I was the new young general manager at the Jacksonville Jaguars and I had Christian Kirk and I wanted to get him off my roster, I would somehow get him off my roster where I did not have to play him twice during the year. This is a very good player.
But he didn't do it. He didn't do it.
He's going to have to play him twice when he goes to Houston. Same division player. Christian Kirk, as far as I'm concerned, has got a lot of gas left in the tank. Balky, before we have our guest on, one receiver I want to get to, the pre-free agency deal that I thought I would never see. And this is a player that on my dynasty team, and I can't wait till we bring our dynasty champion on, because on our dynasty team, I started to get the trigger finger. I had a little spare time. Spare time's been hard to come by lately, Balky. I had a little spare time. I said, maybe I'll start trimming this dynasty roster up. I said, I don't know if Tutu Atwell's somebody I'm going to go forward with. Today, the Rams give Tutu Atwell $10 million.
Guaranteed.
40 catches and no touchdowns. They see something in him that I don't know is there, and they got big plans for him. So, be patient, guys. hang on to your players as we go through this very interesting time of free agency. But Tutu Atwell for $10 million, man, oh man, that gives me hope. That's all I can tell you.
It gives you hope. And now here's the thing. I wasn't planning on doing this, but we're going to do it tonight.
What are we going to do?
We're going to bring on our guest right now.
Well, we always bring the guest on.
I understand, but here's the thing. I'm going to lead him off with a question we weren't going to ask him about.
You're going to surprise him.
I'm going to surprise him
right out of the box.
He may hang up right away and be like, I didn't sign up for this. This is a guy who has won a dozen leagues in his FFPC career at the dynasty level. A guy who is no stranger to dynasty championships. I'll bring him on right now. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Bill Rehor. Bill, thank you so much for chiming in tonight and hanging out with us. I apologize we're getting to you way late tonight. And here's what I'm going to surprise you with. Okay. Ferrell wanted to talk about Christian Kirk going not being cut, but being traded to the Houston Texans.
Houston loves doing that, don't they?
Well, that's okay. That's the thing. So number one, good evening. Thank you for hopping aboard. And what do you make of Christian Kirk, the Houston Texan?
I'm a big fan of it, actually. I agree that he seems like he still has all the talent that he had when he was productive the year before. And good heavens, I can't think of a team that needs a wide receiver more than the Texans right now. So if opportunity is, one of the major qualifications for fantasy success, then he's got it in spades, right?
What if you had a team, and I know you manage a lot of dynasty teams in the FFPC. Bill, what if you had a team that is ready to win right now? Would you part with would you give up the 203 for Christian Kirk right now? 203 rookie pick, obviously.
Yeah, I don't think it's unfair. The thing that I am aware of right now in Dynasty from my perspective is the absolute glut of quality wide receivers. It seems like it's almost impossible to not have a collection of good wide receivers, not superstars, but there are so many guys in that same category of good low end 2, high end 3 kind of guys that I try to avoid expending draft capital to acquire them.
Okay. So at that point, you're like, because this is a market that would strike you as, hey, I don't need to be selling off my draft capital to get these guys. You would be more likely to trade a back end of the second round, or maybe an early third round pick for the likes. And I don't want to say just Christian Kirk in general, but I think
if I was in the market for that kind of player, there's probably 5 or 6 of them, especially right now when everybody's facing that 16-man cut down. It's a great time to go shopping. So I would target 5 or 6 of those kinds of guys who don't have the sexy high end kind of thing that force people up into the first round value area, and just send it out to all 5 or 6 of them and see what I can get for a low end too.
Okay, this is a great warm-up question tonight, Ferrell. Let's delve a little bit deeper into Bill Rehor. So number one, Bill, I literally just did this. I followed you on Blue Sky.
Oh, nice.
Crash your plane at bsky.social. What is the Crash Your Plane? So I want to ask you a little bit about that moniker, because I think you're known as that on X as well. And then tell us what you're doing for a living when you are not winning all these FFPC Dynasty Leagues.
Sure. So Crash Your Plane is it's a quote from David Bowie, but David Bowie actually applies it to Brian Eno. So who knows who it came originally from.
Hold on. Stop talking for a second. Ferrell, I want to impress you guys tonight. Brian Eno, is this what was the band? It was Echo and the Bunnymen. Am I getting that right?
I think you're right.
I think you're right.
Okay. So that's just a flex, because I should not know that. but I'm gonna get it out there right now because I don't know how I know that. But
That's
go
good.
ahead. The
Anyway,
crash. This
so
is interesting because I don't know the David Bowie Crash Your Plane reference at all.
Okay, so the point that Bowie was making is he said that art is the only aspect of your life where you can crash your plane and then walk away from it. Meaning, you can take big risks, you can fail miserably in art, and you still get to walk away and have another chance. So his point was to push your art to the limit, take chances, do things you've never done, because the worst thing that can happen is the plane crashes, but you still get to walk away from it and make your next record or paint your next painting or whatever it is. So that's what the quote means. It's where it comes from. What I do for a living, I am the co-owner of a game company called Beadle and Grimm's. It's myself and my brother and 3 of my best friends, who we all started a game company together. We are licensees of Hasbro, and we work on products related to Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering. So.
My God, I could not be more unprepared for this, Ferrell. I wish, like the commish, who many people are watching this know, Bryce, our commissioner for the Big Gorilla tournaments, FFPC main events. He is big in to this type of genre. I am not. Yeah. And I wish I knew more about it. And so I guess the biggest thing I could say, or the most important question I could say here tonight, is how did you get involved? What was the spur? What was the kick in the rear for you to get involved down this path here?
In this profession, you mean?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So this was sort of a midlife crisis thing, actually. This group of my friends, we had been playing Dungeons and Dragons and other games together for years and years and years. We all met in college or acting school after college. And we all went and often got jobs. I was a hospital administrator for the last 20 some odd years. And at a certain point, we all just kind of looked at each other and said, our kids are growing up, and this is sort of an opportunity for us to do something creative. We love working together. We love doing creative things. And we kind of launched the company as a hobby, as something that we would do in our nights and weekends, and to just have fun and have a reason to spend time together. And we've been very fortunate that it's been successful enough that one by one, we were all able to quit our day jobs and commit ourselves to this thing full time. And so that's what we're doing. I'm just curious, Eric, is that how a fantasy football site starts? Like, was this a nights and weekends hobby for you for a few years?
I'm going to tell you this right now. And I may have mentioned this on the show before. Maybe I haven't, but this was the FFPC was launched by 3 players of the World Championship of Fantasy Football back. God, this Ferrell, how long was this? 15 years?
I don't know. This is back before computers, I think.
Right. Yeah. But
2000 and early, very early.
Right. Yeah. So you had Alex Kaganovsky, you had Dave Gerzak, and you had Lou Tranquilli come together to launch the FFPC. And then Alex and Dave kind of took the lead on this, and Lou, I don't want to say like fell behind. Lou, kind of went out on his own volition or whatever. But this was a situation where you saw a need for something like this in the industry, and they started the FFPC. It's blown up. You look at Beadle and Grimm's, 26,000 followers on Instagram, 26,000 followers on X now. So you guys clearly saw a need in the industry, your own industry, for this. And again, I wish I was more well-versed in it. I'm not. I wish Bryce was on the show.
Venn diagram of football and Dungeons and Dragons. There's not a whole lot.
There's something. There is a little bit of a crossover there. I will say that. Yeah. This is fascinating. This is very fascinating.
It explains the cardigan sweater you're wearing tonight. Very well. And it explains acting school and the creative mind thoughts processes. And I'll tell you what, you're going to get called me. Where do you live, Bill?
Los Angeles.
You're going to get a call from me, the great town of Los Angeles, where I can talk to you about how to be successful in dynasty football and talk to you about all the thrills you're going to have if you come to Kentucky to play. And the real point of my call, the one thing that we are missing to a degree in fantasy football, those of us who run contests, we have not slayed the licensing dragon, which you obviously have. And so any input you can give us there will be highly welcome. Let's move on to fantasy football input, because I want to talk tight ends.
Yeah.
I want to go back to the Super Bowl.
Yep.
And visualize what I saw in Travis Kelce, which was not encouraging. I have not left Travis Kelce as a player. I think Kelce will rebound and play well in this coming year, but I am certainly in the minority. It makes me, I've always been intrigued with Noah Gray. I think he's a very good player. It's hard to get people excited about Noah Gray, I think. And when you look at the rookie group of tight ends,
yeah,
it's not often we get a Bowers. There's a question in here. I'm going to get there. I'm going to help you out with my rookie tight ends. Warren, who everyone seems to like, Fannin, the kid from Bowling Green, that I like his story maybe more than his talent. I'd like to see a player like that do well. And then Loveland. And then there's a player that Balky's mentioned on the show that is down most people's list, and that's the kid out of Syracuse, Gadsden, which reminds me most of Bowers. Take it away from there. What are you thinking about from the tight end position, specifically with the Chiefs, and just overall as we build these dynasty rosters? Because I think we're really, really light at wide receiver in the draft this year. There's some good ones, but not great ones. Do we move the tight ends up? Do we take our shots? How are we handling this positions? Because I've got a lot of elder tight ends on my dynasty teams.
Yeah, I'm with you. I scooped up a ton of Noah Gray and Strange at the end of last year, thinking I'd have a couple of starters, and one of those is working out a little better than the other one right now. I mean, I do feel similarly about both of them in this sense, and I don't mean this as an insult. Look, anybody who's in the NFL is a kick-ass athlete and deserving of praise. But in terms of the NFL, I would call them both replaceable talents. And what I always try to remind myself is that replaceable talents tend to get replaced.
Yep.
So the dilemma with Gray isn't just that he's not going to start in 2025. It's that you've now given the Chiefs 365 more days to find a replacement. And that worries me. I have no insight into whether or not they will use the draft pick to take it. I kind of doubt it, just because of where they are in the draft. I think the really celebrated ones will be gone by the time they pick, and the ones that would be available to them in the second or third rounds, I'm not that scared of. But those aren't the only options. There's going to be plenty of other opportunities for them to find somebody else to plug in there come next year when Kelce maybe retires. The good thing about Strange is that they have a lot less time to figure it out. They might draft somebody. They might pick up somebody in free agency, but at least I think your odds are better of getting at least one starting year out of Strange before they find somebody to replace him.
And you would be, do you agree with my assessment that Strange is a 65 catch guy?
I do, with the caveat that offense last year seemed intent on turning him into an 85 catch guy just because of the way they were operating. Now, whole new coaching staff, who knows what's going to happen. It certainly wasn't, you can make either argument when you look at that Tampa coaching staff coming over. There was that 4-week period where Cade Otton looked like the best tight end in football, and then there were the other 13 weeks where they basically ignored him. So, I'll be really interested to see what they pick up as a complimentary receiver.
Yeah.
Obviously, Brian Thomas is otherworldly, but he can't catch everything. And if they don't come up with a great second option, then I could see him getting up into the 70 to 80 catch range for a year. But again, in Dynasty, to me, that's just a sell opportunity because I don't think he lasts. I don't think he catches 80 balls because he's so good he can hold on to that job.
Gotcha.
If that makes sense.
I know it makes sense. And I think, and let me just bring it back to this. And I don't have like super updated data from Fantasy Mojo, fantasymojo.com, Darren Armani, the godfather of the Pros versus Joes contest. If you are looking to play in the FFPC, register over at fantasymojo.com, get a subscription there because I think
hardly agree with that.
There you go. There you go. So you get the Bill Rehor stamp of approval.
It's 3 endorsements for Armani, and I brought him up first tonight. I mean, he lives a charmed life. He really
nicely done.
I mean, we got 10 questions. He's already been brought up 4 times.
I know. But the thing is, like, so this is going to be a tough question to answer.
Yeah.
But Brenton Strange right now, and I'm using never too early best ball tournament data, which I know is not what we're talking about with Dynasty.
Yeah.
But he is going as tight end 37 right now at the 18-10. So out of 20 rounds, he is going in the 18th round. He's obviously going to move up from there.
Yeah.
Bill, I think the best way I can ask this question here is, what is the percentage chance that Jacksonville skips over tight end in free agency? They skip over, like they don't take a tight end on day 1 or day 2 of the NFL draft. And in that case, Strange is going to be the starter for Jacksonville. And if he is the starter for Jacksonville, you're talking about all of a sudden a potential top 10 tight end in FFPC fantasy scoring. So for people who are drafting right now, to get him in the 18th round would be insane. And that's not going to last. But your thoughts on whether Strange is going to be the starting tight end in Jacksonville this year, something that, if it happens, super juicy for people drafting at the moment.
Yeah, this is where your job becomes really scary because I know that what I say is now on tape and somebody will run it back to me when something else happens. But I think it's a very strong chance he's the starter. I do. I think they have a lot of stuff to do with that team. And
the Kirk trade. I mean, we talked about the Kirk trade too. Like, now all of a sudden you're looking at like, well, I mean, I guess they could add a wide receiver in free agency or whatever. But if they don't, this is massive to be the number 2 pass catching option in an offense with Brian Thomas as the number 1, Trevor Lawrence as a former 101 pick in the NFL draft, a guy who has shown us what he can do. I'm of the opinion right now here that whatever Jacksonville does in the offseason, unless it's a massive move at the tight end position, unless it's a massive move at wide receiver, and I think both of those are highly unlikely. Yeah. This is like Brenton Strange, like we've rolled out the red carpet for him.
I agree. Here's the one thing I'd be scared of, and if somebody offered him to me in Dynasty right now, I would wait until Wednesday, because the one thing that scares the out of me is bringing over Chris Godwin.
Oh yeah, boy, that'd be interesting,
right?
And I know Tampa really wants to bring him back, but there's no guarantee that they do bring him back.
No, they're not tagging him. So
exactly, and if Godwin goes to Jacksonville, you are going to see him running a lot of what's the term here? Not repetitive, but they are Brenton Strange and Chris Godwin would not be complementary.
Yeah, duplicative routes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about Cade Otton. Like that's when Godwin went out, that's when Otton got featured for a while there. And yeah, that's the one thing that spooks me a little bit. But I agree with you. I think the odds are very low. It doesn't seem like the way that they're building their team right now. Yeah. But I would love to wait until I'm sure.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like we're talking about what 4 days, 5 days till we know what's more on the and that could pay off for FFPC Dynasty owners for sure going forward. Ferrell, we've been talking about tight ends. Let's talk about wide receivers. Let's talk about the Niners. Let's talk about the Commanders here because they hooked up on a trade.
When this trade first went down, guys, my thoughts was, how does this affect the Commanders? And, I seem to concentrate on that. And I liked some of the answers. I've talked to a lot of fantasy players about that side of the coin. Let's focus on the 49ers. We might get back to tight end here, but how does it affect the existing receiver core of the 49ers? And since your cardigan suggests that you could have been a doctor, I will ask you the condition of how soon Ayuk will be back to the lineup. What do you see happening with the 49ers? Do either of you guys have an idea or any inclination what they might do in free agency? And just some 49ers, because it's without a doubt one of my favorite teams to watch.
I have a few thoughts on this, Bill, but I'm going to let you go first on this.
Bill goes first.
Okay, fair enough. I am deeply skeptical about Ayuk. If you were, he's a player I would love to not have on my rosters right now. And because what I see happening, my best guess is that it's something like TJ Hawkinson's 2024 season, where he misses about half the year. He comes back. He's not really himself. And his value, dynasty-wise, his value really plummets. As much as we all say we're in it for the long haul and we look at 3-year windows and whatever, when somebody isn't producing, their value really drops in dynasty.
Pearsall and Jennings then.
Yeah.
If that's your belief, and I would say that lines up with most beliefs, and I think it's very legitimate. Pearsall and Jennings, what are you doing with those two players?
I want to have them anywhere I can.
Both of them, you're saying?
Both of them, absolutely. I truly believe they will both be the starters for most of this year, and I think it's very likely they are the starting duo in 2026.
They could be looking at wonderful years, and your LA Rams, Tutu Atwell. I don't know if you heard. I was listening. He's being paid $10 million. Pearsall and Jennings will be splitting the Golden Gate Bridge when the season is over with the stats that they would have. That would be in their contract. I could get that contract.
I'm high on both of them. And unfortunately, I'm low on Ayuk.
Listen, Bill, you say unfortunately. I don't know if it's unfortunate. I look at the ADP on these guys at Fantasy Mojo in the Never Too Early tournament right now. Ayuk 707, Juwan Jennings is at 804, and Ricky Pearsall at the 910. I am 100% striking on Jennings and Pearsall over Ayuk at that
point. Why is the injured Ayuk being drafted?
The issue is, Ferrell, is I think when we're talking about drafting in February and we're talking about drafting in March, Ayuk is going to be held in a higher regard. Like, we don't understand, and I say we, maybe not we is the right nomenclature here, but I think a lot of people will just understand, like, oh, Ayuk, he's coming off the injury, but he'll be good to go. Deebo Samuel's gone. Ayuk is going to be the number one receiver. And, well, that could be the case. I am more likely to get the guys who are going to be healthy, that I know are going to be healthy week one. Jennings.
Availability is the greatest ability.
Exactly. Pearsall, who got shot last season, and then at the end of the 2024 year, like, he really came on at the end. So I look at those two guys. I'm much more likely to have those players on my team in best ball. As far as dynasty goes, I think, Bill, this is where you could flex your muscle on this. But I have Ayuk on a team. I can't get anything for him right now. Like, nobody is willing to give up anything for him. This is a player, until Samuel got traded, and quite frankly, even after Samuel got traded, we still heard Ayuk was a guy that the Niners were listing to offers for, and that is not a player that I really want to be on board with. That's not a player I want to be in business with. I think the guys that you want to be in business with for 2025 on the Niners, Pearsall, Jennings, and Kittle, not necessarily Ayuk. I'll let you flex on that.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with everything you said, and I would, I agree. It's a tough time to trade Ayuk because of those the trade rumors that have been swirling around him. I think there's, that combined with the injury is the uncertainty. I think you wait until the first time somebody says one of those overly optimistic, he'll be ready for training camp kind of comments, and then you try to unload him at that point. It's like with Jonathan Brooks last year. He goes to the combine and tells everybody that he'll be good for training camp, and everybody goes, "Oh, well, then it's the truth." That's
By the way, I was one of those people drinking that Kool-Aid. Unfortunately, I was one of them. It's just.
Yeah, look, him and or his agent and or the 49ers are going to say some rosy things about him sometime in the next 3 to 4 months, and I would just sit on him until that happens, and then try to get rid of him at that point. That's certainly, I think I only have him on one team now, but that's what I'll be doing.
Agents are living proof that are the most trustworthy people in football. So I want to remind
Yes.
you.
Yeah, well, have a little bit of bias there, but yes, I get it.
About 3 weeks ago, we had a wonderful character of fantasy football, and you come to Las Vegas and play, don't you, Bill?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah. I've seen you there. That's right.
Yeah,
and this guy's name is Bill Hollywood, and you would really like him. He plays here in Kentucky. Plays.
He might be in the chat tonight. Just hasn't spoken.
Yeah,
yet.
we hadn't checked it. He asked me a question, and I'm gonna. The question I want to ask you is: at what point in the off season do you feel you're most dialed in with the rookies? And if I'm going to change roles with you, and I'm going to answer that question for me.
Okay.
He asked a question about 2 receivers, and I was not able to give him a good answer because I think each year is different. We talked about the wide receiver class. They're still going to draft a bunch of wide receivers, and they had them all at the combine, not being deep with talent. He brought up 2 guys that I'll get to a little bit later in this question, and I've got one that I'm going to throw back to him that I think is on the rise. Okay. But you are the successful dynasty player, so you must have a different, consistent, and more credible connection with the rookie class than I do. What is it, and what's your evaluation process?
Oh boy, that puts me on the spot.
It does. We're trying to figure something out here, Bill. We're all trying to win.
Yeah.
We're all trying to get a little, we want to be like you.
Right. It's good. Be careful what you wish for. But I'm
gonna go listen to some Bowie in a minute.
I am not a talent scout. I am very well aware that is not a skill that I have. I definitely watch highlights. I will watch tape. I will try to, see the things that other people see. But honestly, the only responsible answer to that question is after the NFL draft. And that's because the reality is that no matter how much tape you watch and how good you are at it, the best indicators for long-term success for a rookie are draft capital and landing spot.
Right.
That's it. It's where are they going to get an opportunity to play early, and how much did their team invest in them?
Mm-hmm.
Now, Bill, what you have answered to that question is not uncommon. We have heard this response from a lot of really successful dynasty players.
Yeah.
So then my counter to that is if draft capital plays that important of a role, like if you have to see how the NFL draft plays out, what do you do right now with your rookie picks? Do you by and large stand pat? Do you by and large say, I want to see how this plays out before I start trading these picks? Or is there a sweet spot where you are striking right now, where you will acquire picks? Because, the thing is, without draft capital, without the NFL draft, we're still kind of like, what's the Leslie Nielsen line? Like a blind man in an orgy. I'm going to have to feel things out. Which is, right? Which is, I think, what a lot of Leslie Nielsen said that Naked Gun. Yes. But I think like that is something that I think a lot of dynasty owners have that approach right now. Is that the approach that you are taking in regards to trades as far as rookie picks right now?
Yeah. It sounds really basic, but my assumption is that by the time rookie drafts roll around, every draft, with the exception of, maybe a 101 kind of guy like Ashingenti, who's spectacularly differently valued, every draft ends up being more or less equal in terms of the value of the slots. It's not like I look at this year's draft and say, oh, this year the 108 is going to be so much better or so much worse than last year's 108 or the 108 the year before or the 108 the year before that. My personal opinion is that, having done this for a number of years, I think they kind of shake out the same way, or at least close enough that you are a fool to try to predict how that, what the variances will be.
There were at the combine, there was just a flood of fantasy football content coming from fantasy football content creators at the combine. I got so entertained by it because all these NFL people are there working, trying to figure this out, are just getting started, are going down that long road. They've got to, some of them have got to stop and work free agency, and they'll get back to it. And they're going to fly players in and interview them. But the fantasy content creators are going to say, I'll tell you exactly a great steal in the third round for you. And it just, and you're exactly right. I think last year, one of my rookie player that I absolutely loved here at Western Kentucky University and a Kentucky kid, Malachi Corley. And I think he is a terrific ball player. And I was excited to see where he was going to be drafted. And he went to the Jets. It was just like, it was just like a stab wound to my stomach. It was just, I said, oh, hell, the Jets. And then people talked about it. He was like living in Rogers' guest house. Rogers probably doesn't even have a damn guest house. So
Rogers living in the guest house himself.
Yeah. So I don't know. But you're exactly right. So I want to shout out to Bill Hollywood again. I want to give him my guys that I think could rise in the draft, and I will come in with the Bill Rehor, the asterisk of attention. Find out where their landing spot is. Nick Nash, Ricky White, good receivers. He asked about them.
He loves Nick Nash for sure.
Perhaps that player is going to become more like what we wanted to see from Drake London with a better landing spot. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to throw one out, a University of Louisville player, Ja'Cory Brooks, who's rising and doing well, and the scouts are beginning to talk about. But we're a long way from figuring out if those guys can help you in fantasy football.
Yeah,
but you should be aware of them.
Yeah, I'm kind of working my way through the list. The receiver Higgins, crazy combine that guy had. That was exciting. So I'm really excited to look at him and see what his highlight reel looks like and try to form an opinion on him.
Well, all the highlight reels look good, Bill.
Yeah, well, that's for sure.
I've become a champion. Like Bill, you don't know this, or maybe you do know this. I don't know. I live in Northeast Wisconsin. I'm kind of like rooting for Jaden Higgins to end up on the Packers with a second round pick this year.
Sure. So you can have all the Jadens?
All the Jadens, everybody, every single one of the Jadens on the Packers. You have Reed, you have Higgins, you have Jordan Love. It's a recipe for a Super Bowl. I don't know, but I'm a big Higgins guy. To supplement Ferrell's question here, and I know you're not like deep into it yet.
Yeah.
I've been saying this on all my shows over the last month or so. I've had people try to sell me on Tet McMillan as the number one receiver in this class. As of right now, I probably would label him as my wide receiver one, but there's some misgivings on this, and I think it's because this is the long tail, right, of wide receivers in this year's class. I don't know if there's like a big standout number one, but there's something for everybody in this class. In your opinion, for what you know right now, is McMillan the number one receiver, or maybe do you like somebody better? Or is the gap between number one and number two, number three, not that big?
Yeah, I mean, at this point in my process, he's the number one. The big thing that I was worried about with McMillan was the sort of, I guess I'm old because I still think of it as the JJ Stokes problem where.
Oh God, that is a great callback. I love the JJ Stokes callback. Good call.
You get worried about these really big guys that are able to manhandle everybody at the college level, but if they run a 4.6, they're really going to struggle when they move over to the NFL. The fact that he ran a 4.47 gave me a lot of hope for him.
I'll be honest with you, Bill. I had on Sean Siegel from RotoViz on one of my other shows.
Yeah,
and I brought up N'Keal Harry. When talking about Tetero and McMillan, I brought up N'Keal Harry, and he's like, "What is this unprompted N'Keal Harry that you're bringing up on the show?" Like he was personally offended.
Yeah,
and I get it, but like the thing is, like, and Jared Smoller from Draft Sharks, I brought up the same thing. Like this is a guy that has failed to get separation. He's a big guy, huge target radius. But I've seen guys like this, quite frankly, fail more often than succeed in the NFL. And I love the Drake London comp. I mean, if he hits like Drake London, then I'm totally wrong on this. But man, I don't know. Like if I have the 102, I'm much more likely to select a guy like Omarion Hampton or Travion Henderson. Again, depending upon landing spot. I'm talking about my rookie.
Bill, I do not like where this conversation is going.
I'm sorry.
You must join me. Yeah. That we must stop Balky here in March. Bill,
yeah,
do you listen to the show regularly?
I don't.
Well, you need to tune in because we have a blast.
I will never miss another episode.
Well, let's don't go crazy. But the last year in my evaluations, I had listed Brock Bowers as I'm going all in on Brock Bowers. And Balky comes on the show with a picture of Brock Bowers standing next to Gronk.
Oh God, I remember that.
That
was a madhouse.
It begins to spread doubt, which somehow found its way into the limited space in my brain, and took me out of some of the early drafting Brock Bowers plans that I had. I'm saying here that 6'5" wide receiver.
Sorry, I'm trying to get the right photo here.
Yeah, I was going to say that was not the right photo. Say about that.
No, that was my bad. That was my bad.
Sorry, keep going. Yes.
6'5" wide receiver that catches everything. Not only runs straight line speed, but I think plays faster. When you look at the film, he plays faster. And he played in a conference against competition in college ball that is noted for some of the speed teams in the secondary.
Yeah.
I'm going to side with this player. And I'm going to say that, everything that I love about Pittman, and this guy is fast, Balky. So that's where I'm going to land on this one. And don't dig up any pictures trying to prove that he's not really 6'5" or something like that.
Right. Yeah, no. I think of him as like T. Higgins is the guy that comes to mind when I watch him, and I love that. But that does tell you something about this draft class, that the ceiling guy is T. Higgins, not Jamar Chase. So compared to how spoiled we've been over the last 3 or 4 years of receiver classes, this is.
Quick dynasty question then. Do you trade some of your aging talent and pick up those 5, 6, 7 round draft picks and just start taking your pot shots at the at the Nick Nashes and Ricky Whites and guys that might be available late. Is that a strategy you think that might turn up something?
Here's my problem with that strategy. I love that strategy, except, and I want to be clear, I love this rule, but FFPC for a dynasty league has very small rosters.
Mm-hmm.
Most dynasty leagues, you're up at 28, 30, even 35. That's where you can stash those kinds of guys and hold on to them for a year or two and see what happens. I'm not sure. Hey, there it is.
Yeah, we got there. So there's the picture. That's Rob Gronkowski standing next to Brock Bowers, who looks about 10 years older than him, and much smaller than him. And yet Brock Bowers, the guy on the left, he absolutely crushed the rookie season that Rob Gronkowski had. The guy standing next to him. So there.
Yeah, no, you've convinced me, Eric. I'm going to trade away all my Brock Bowers shares.
I'm not listening. No, that's not. There's
the proof right there.
That's not the idea. The idea here is that pictures can lie. The idea here was there's plenty of people that believed in Brock Bowers even after this photo was taken, where Brock Bowers looked like some sort of science teacher, like talking to a future stud, and Rob Gronkowski as opposed to vice versa with what it actually
you
was.
are the trusted voice of the FFPC. It doesn't matter what anybody else comes on here and says. You are the trusted voice, and you know people take that to the bank. You are what Walter Cronkite was to CBS and news. You are Balkman.
How
you
much
got to understand that you are. You got a big responsibility out there showing pictures like this.
Yes.
This is why I don't ever wear shorts, by the way. This is
well,
you got a great athlete here that, looking dorky in shorts. I'm a long pants kind of guy. I know that's not a thing in California, Bill. I know you probably out on shorts now. Bill, is that the heaviest garment you have in your closet there?
That sweater? Yeah.
Pretty close. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me ask you guys this. It's like, and Bill, you understand this. Tell me that dude, Brock Bowers, does not look like Butthead from Beavis and Butthead from the waist down. Like honest to God, like the no-show ankle socks, the black shoes, the nondescript gray shorts. And then from the waist up, listen, I'm losing my hair. I'll be the first one to admit it. But that dude, Brock Bowers, you're talking about a guy in his early 20s that has male pattern baldness. And we're somehow like you put him next to the Adonis that's Rob Gronkowski. You're like, yeah, this is the 101 in tight end premium. Like it's the images lie. And this image is clearly lying to us right now.
Let's bury that image with this. I talked to a Raider player. I said, what kind of player is Bowers? He said, he's the best football player I've ever met.
There you go. That's all you need to know. And now he gets Geno Smith throwing to him.
There you go.
This year as well. Okay. We have one final question. Ferrell, I'm going to leave it to you because once again, the hour has gotten away from me. I'm going to leave you to ask Bill the final question of the night.
Bill, lay it out to me. It's the question. It's the reason I do the show. Tell me somebody that you don't want, that you just can't have, that you can't stand. Balky's got a picture of George Costanza over his right shoulder there. Can't stand you.
Yeah.
Give me that guy, and give me a guy that we haven't talked about yet that you think could be the go-to guy for your dynasty rookie drafts or any of your main event drafts. Just tell us what you're thinking, where we can share in some of that winnings that you have so wonderfully added to your win sheet over the years.
Well, thank you. My answer would have been Ayuk, but I think we kind of talked that one to death. So
you got to come up with some new stuff.
Yeah. So what I would say, I'm very nervous about all the running backs who have tentative holds on their starting jobs.
Totally
With this
agree.
draft class coming in, I love Chase Brown. Super fun guy to watch. Was really successful for me on the teams I had him in. But boy, am I scared about that. you know, and it's not a you brought up one guy I can't stand, and I'll mention him, and then you'll hate me forever. But I don't want Michael Pittman on any of my.
Oh my God, Ferrell!
And it makes it so much better for me. Thank you.
Sorry, Ferrell.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Just keep that tide rolling.
Okay, yeah, I'll keep driving his price down.
Round when I get to Paris, I want to get Pittman in the 15th round. So, okay.
Yeah. And it's, you know, it's nothing against the guy except that he's, you know, once a guy gets into the later half of his 20s, if he hasn't, and I say this knowing that Terry McLaurin is the answer to this question, but you know, the odds of somebody breaking out in their late 20s, it just becomes increasingly less and less. And you know, all we can do in these leagues is, you know, analyze a range of outcomes. We're never going to be right 100% of the time. All you can do is just say, what are the odds of this versus this? And once a guy like, you know, with Pittman's profile, especially, thank you, Tom. I at least have one person agreeing with me.
Oh, you'll get a lot. And all you guys that just don't like those 99 and 100 reception years, it's just it's so problematic. And you're waiting for him to break out, and he's old, you know, he's 27, and he's a gentleman farmer in Indiana. You got to love that about the guy.
A gentleman farmer.
He owns a farm in Indiana, and, you know, he had a terrible year last year. He caught 70 balls. That's his terrible year. You know, we want to draft in the 5th round Flowers, who, God bless him, if he can get to 70 balls, if he can get Lamar to give the ball up to him that much, that's a victory. But it's okay. It's okay. Keep adding, because it's good.
Okay.
It's good for me.
I just want him to be cheap for you, man. That's
I was
all
saying, get him down. Keep going.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I'll throw that.
Most disrespected 100-catch receiver in the history of fantasy.
I will be honest with you guys. Ferrell knew more than Michael Pittman than I did. Michael Pittman does own a farm.
It's a full scouting report.
Yes. Filled with horses, goats, chickens, cows, and an emu. This is some Jordy Nelson stuff that we're getting on right here with Michael Pittman. I had no idea. He's got a big green tractor. This is insane. This is a guy who played college football at USC and owns a farm in Indianapolis as a guy who lives in the heart of Northeast Wisconsin. I have to reevaluate how I believe about how
I'd love to hang out with him.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Doesn't have to be on my fantasy team.
So
how does Michael Pittman not have some sort of contract with John Deere tractors right now?
I don't know. It's a licensing thing, but after I talked to Bill, you know, we're going to figure that out. But it will be it will be interesting. There's just sometimes he's the Roger Maris of FFPC. You know,
Pittman?
Yes, he's the Roger Maris. You know, nobody really cared that he had
because of the lack of respect. You mean?
No, nobody really cared that he had 60 home runs. It's
who's the Mickey Mantle of FFPC then? If Pittman is the Maris.
Well, there's many players that we celebrate.
Josh Downs.
But there's not a lot of players that have 100 reception years, average 100 receptions over 3 years. But no, we don't really want that guy.
No.
You know, and he was very much available. What's he going off now? Let's give Darren another shout out.
Yeah,
let's get some numbers up there.
In the FFPC
11th round. Is he in the 11th round yet?
He is in the FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament. Wide receiver 51 at the 11:02 right now.
Oh, sweet it is. And fellas, word is out of Indianapolis that there's going to be a new quarterback riding in on a tractor. So, you know, hold on. Yeah.
Will that quarterback be a quarterback who was throwing balls in the land of tractors in Northeast Wisconsin less than 3 years ago in Aaron Rodgers?
Anything could happen.
Okay. Now that would be, I hadn't thought of that one. That would be interesting.
No.
They're going to figure out a way to get a new quarterback in there.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. as much as I am selling myself to fantasy football media and saying I should be the face of your fantasy football podcast, Aaron Rodgers is going even harder in the NFL right now. I should be the face of your NFL franchise. And I don't know if he's going to get a job. Could be the Colts. It could be the Giants. It won't be the Rams. And as we brought you at the top of the hour, could be the Seahawks at this point.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
That was the first thing that jumped to my mind, too.
Yeah.
Could I ask permission tonight, Balky, that this show just goes on to midnight?
No, we can't do midnight. We absolutely.
I'm having so much fun.
I know it's been awesome. The last thing, and thank you, Ferrell, for teeing me up for this. Bill, the last thing you want to say tonight of everything that we've talked about. I don't know. We haven't touched on trading a whole lot. Maybe you want to touch on dynasty trading here, because I know I could use all the help I could get in that area.
Okay. So my 22-year-old son now has a few dynasty teams on your site and is really enjoying it. It's been, I want to say, what a great thing that is for me. And I mean, we're very close anyway, but what a joy it is to have something that we can share and talk about. And, I really, really love that. And I'm, thank you for providing us with this thing. But so the two pieces of advice that I gave him about trading: whenever you receive a trade, counter. No matter how bad it is, no matter how stupid it is, find something in that trade that you can counter with. Okay,
hold on. Let me interrupt you. What if it's something you're willing to accept right away?
Yes. I'm sorry. Yeah, obviously, if you're going to accept it. Great.
Okay.
But no, I'm not advocating for, I love that trade, but let me see if I can get something else. Don't do that. If you love the trade, take it. But what I'm saying is, the gut reaction for most people is just to reject it and forget about it and not look into it. And what I would encourage you to do is try to counter, see if you can get a conversation going, see if you can find some aspect of that trade. If somebody offers you, Tyrone Tracy for a first-round pick, I don't want to give up my first-round pick for Tyrone Tracy, but I could counter with what I would give up for
Tyrone. You could counter with Pittman.
Counter with Pittman, please.
Always counter with Pittman.
Or I can counter with, I wouldn't give a first-rounder for Tracy, but here's a player on your roster that I would. So look, 90% of the time it will fail because the other person had an idea in mind, but sometimes it will generate a conversation or lead you to something that neither one of you expected. So I encourage people to try to do that.
Respond to the opening salvo.
Yeah. On the other end of it, I would say whenever I can, if I'm offering a trade to somebody, I try to offer two things rather than one, because I think most people think in a binary way. If you offer them a problem, they think about it in yes, no, right, wrong, 1, 2, whatever. And so if you only give them one offer, they think about it as yes or no. If you give them two offers, they will often get into the mindset of evaluating offer 1 versus offer 2 rather than evaluating yes versus no. I can't prove that works.
Yeah.
But for me, it has been pretty effective of, offering my first round pick, not for one player on their roster, but for this player and saying either one, and letting them think about it in terms of comparing my offers rather than thinking about it in terms of rejecting or accepting.
Balky, we got to slow it down. Bill's giving too much away. You're giving away too fast now, Bill. I'm feeling a little guilty now because you've given away the keys to the kingdom.
All right, so let's wrap this up here tonight, and I'm gonna do it in a good way, at least I think a good way. So at Crash Your Plane on both Blue Sky and X is Bill Rehor. Now, Bill, you also have been featured, and I'm going to bring this up. Maybe you don't want me bringing this up. I'm going to bring it up. You've been featured at the Comedy Store as in Los Angeles as early as last year. with luminaries like Seth Green, Matthew Lillard in support of the Faster Purple Worm Kill, which is the Dungeons and Dragons thing that you have going on right now, right? That's correct. Okay. I want to make sure I'm getting this right.
You're getting it exactly right.
Okay, good. That's fantastic. So for anybody who is following all of your exploits outside of fantasy football,
yes,
at Crash Your Plane, is that the best place to go, or should we?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. At Crash Your Plane on X, Crash Your Plane on Blue Sky. Fantastic stuff tonight. And Bill, I have a sinking feeling this is not the last conversation we're going to have with you on this program about fantasy football because of your success. And I congratulate you and your son for all the success you've had. I wish you nothing but the best of luck going forward in the FFPC with Dynasty and all the fantasy footballs that you guys participate in. Thank you for staying way extra than I thought we'd have you on tonight. This was so much fun, man. Don't be a stranger. We'll talk to you again real soon. Thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight.
Jen, such a pleasure. Really appreciate you both.
Thank you so much. That is Bill Rehor hanging out with us tonight as I'm trying to figure out a way to get him. Hold on. I can, here we go. I just had to get rid of the George Costanza thing. And now I bring it back here. We can stand Bill Rehor.
Oh, yeah. We got to stand him. Yeah, Bill, geez, that was good stuff.
That was great. It was great. I would say, Ferrell, like, we're on a hot streak. We're on a hitting streak right now of great guests over the last 2 or 3 months.
We've had some really good guests, and it just goes to show you the greatest thing that I liked about this was what he said about bringing his son. I think fantasy football is the greatest family opportunity to be tight, to have, I mean, look at the Cruz dynasty. Like two of them at one table. It's wonderful. And
the Masellis, that's another great father and son combo for sure. In the
father and son,
FFPC.
Yeah, and I'm still waiting for them to agree on something. That's what I love so much about those guys. It's just, will you agree on something? They'll probably agree they don't like Pittman, but that's it's just probably. But those two enjoy this more than anyone.
You throw a 49er at them, and they will be fast to agree on any San Francisco 49er. We will continue to check out everything the Kentucky Fantasy Football Championship has to offer. And by the way, Ferrell, you don't even know this. Our mutual friend, Jim Cole, from the Oregon Territory.
The Oregon Territory.
He and I are pairing up with a Batman and Robin partnership that we have done to some critical acclaim before. We're doing that again in 2025.
It's a dangerous crew. We're getting Jim back in the house.
Jim is coming back in the house. He is going to guide me because I am not guiding him. It is much better when he is guiding me to hopefully some big things in the KFFSC. So I'm very excited to do that, to get some KFFSC drafts off with him and myself going forward. And anybody else wants to get involved, KFFSC.com is where to go. At jferrellelliott on Insta, at jferrellelliott on the X. Ferrell, another great show, man. Thank you so much. We'll be back at it next week, my friend.
Next Friday it is. See you there.
That is Ferrell Elliott, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football. So glad to have him on, and so glad, my God, to have on tonight the incomparable Bill Rehor, who you check him out at Crash Your Plane on the X and Blue Sky with everything he's got going on with Dungeons and Dragons. Obviously, anytime you are bringing in Seth Green and Matthew Lillard, these are the heavy hitters of Hollywood. Say what you will about it, but they are heavy hitters. And check them out, Crash Your Plane, with everything that they've got going on outside of the fantasy football spectrum. We know that we will be hearing from Bill in the fantasy football plane going forward, coming up later on this season and in seasons going forward. I want to thank Bill, Ferrell, the FFPC, Rob, Bryce, and of course, each and every one of you for downloading, streaming, watching, listening, whatever, going forward here as you consume this content tonight. We will be back at 10 p.m. next Friday with another great guest. I want to remind everybody, if you did not watch last night's last night's Better Sports Network's High Stakes Fantasy Football show, we had on Dynasty Nerds, Rich, God, I'm forgetting now, Rich Doston, who came on, which was great. And we had a lot of great Dynasty content with him. And we will be back on that show, 7 o'clock this coming Thursday, with another great guest for 2 full hours. Everything you need to know about Dynasty and redraft fantasy football coming up on the Better Sports Network, 7 o'clock Eastern time. Tuesday night, Bill Wonky, a longtime FFPC player who won 10 leagues in 2024 alone. He came on and we talked a lot, mostly Dynasty, but some redraft stuff as well. In case you missed that, any of the FFPC socials, check that out. myffpc.com, FFPC YouTube, FFPC Facebook, and FFPC X. That show will resume April 1st, which is a Tuesday, 10 p.m. We'll have more on that as well. Play the FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball tournaments, both Superflex and Classic. $40,000 and $10,000 grand prize at stake, $125 and $35 to enter FFPC Big Gorilla Tournament. We got those drafts popping off. I got to be honest with you. I sent this out in the FFPC email. We are well ahead of 2x pace, considering where we were last year, as opposed to this year. So get in now. The other thing that you have this year is you are basically getting into 2 tournaments as opposed to 1 tournament as you were last year. When you enter the FFPC Big Gorilla now, you will not only be entered for that $1 million grand prize, you'll be entered into a $10,000 grand prize with the early Rampage tournament. So check that out. And of course, the 7 Bananas contest as well. If you get that 7 pick 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times in a row, you will be awarded a special prize from the FFPC. We've already awarded several special prizes there, including a best ball tournament entry, including a main event entry. We'll go up to a high society $10,000 entry and a jungle safari for 4, $50,000 cash prize. If you are able to get that 7 pick 4 times in a row. myffpc.com is where to go. Dynasty Orphan Teams available at myffpc.com. Check that out. Some of those teams lowered as little as $1. So you're basically getting a free entry for those Dynasty teams in year 1. And who knows, you could run that team up to a championship in year 1, year 2, year 3, maybe multiples going forward. You never know. myffpc.com. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, and get notified each and every time we go live, which will be next Thursday at 7 p.m. for the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show on the Better Sports Network with yours truly and another industry insider. It's going to be a lot of fun. Not the time to tune out from the FFPC. This is a lot of Dynasty stuff, a lot of NFL draft stuff. You'll want to be ahead of the curve when it comes to not only rookie drafts, but redrafts as well, where these Dynasty picks are, where these Dynasty players will be chosen here coming up after the NFL draft goes off at the end of next month. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate each and every one of you. Your weekend officially starts now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. It was broadcast live and was watched around the world. Balky and Ferrell will be back next week with more analysis, more interviews, and more advice from guests much smarter than they are. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk with you again next week.
Once again, tonight's guest was Bill Rehor. Check him out at Crash Your Plane on X, at Crash Your Plane on Blue Sky. That is where you want to go for everything going on with Dungeons & Dragons, everything that he's doing outside the fantasy football industry. I know there's some crossover there. Commish Bryce is a huge Dungeons & Dragons fan, so I know he'll be checking it out. You should too. At Crash Your Plane. And thanks so much for watching, everybody, tonight. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I really appreciate everybody hanging out on a Friday night with us. This is so much fun doing this show, and I want to continue doing it for many, many years. Have a great weekend. Enjoy drafting in the FFPC, and we will talk with you again 1 week from today.